Welcome to the Idaho Business Podcast, the only Idaho podcast focused on providing profits for Idaho people. If you love our state and love small business, you are in the right place. We interview local legends, learn business, and have way too much fun doing it. You're listening to the Idaho Business Podcast with your friend, host, and all-around great guy and owner of New Clean Commercial Cleaning, Spencer Ward.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Idaho Business Podcast. We are here with Rishon Blumberg. Wow, I'm going to slaughter it already, Rishon Blumberg and Michael Solomon. These guys are co-founders of 10X Management. And these guys, I'm not going to embarrass them too much, but they're big deals in the business world.
We're just people.
That's what our mothers think.
Yeah.
They're not new to the business world by any means. They started up another company back in the day, I believe 1995, right?
That's correct.
Brick wall management, and you two are childhood friends, which is amazing. That's
Also
something
true.
that's people that I wish they could do that kind of stuff with their friends and just have that journey you guys have.
Yep.
But within the brick wall management, these guys represented musicians like John Mayer, Vanessa Carlton, Shania Twain, some of these big people that we know, especially the Shania Twain, Idaho, we love our country over here. So, but they've been doing that for a while. And now they've started up 10X Management Group. They're finding tech talent, and we're going to find out more about that. But before I roll it out, correct me if I said anything wrong, Michael and Rishon.
Not yet.
No.
More time to come.
Okay, I think we are factually accurate. We've been friends since third grade, which means we've known each other for about 10 years. I mean, we're still really, really, really young. That's a joke. And yeah, we started an entertainment company called Brick Wall Management in '95 when we were actually pretty young. And through the years, we've worked with a lot of amazing talent. You mentioned John Mayer, Vanessa Carlton. We didn't manage Shania Twain or Bruce Springsteen, but we've been involved with the management that they had at the time. And so we were exposed to a lot of those types of talent. And we actually talk about in our book, Bruce Springsteen, we interview his managers, John Landau and Barbara Carr, because he's really the first 10Xer we were ever introduced to without us knowing the concept of 10X at the time. So yeah, hi, we're psyched to be here.
Yeah. I love it. We're excited to have you. And I did leave out that you did just come up with a newer book. When did you release the book, Game Changers?
So Game Changer came out, I want to say September 20th last year, right smack in the middle of COVID, which was interesting to say the least.
Yep.
But we're thrilled to have it out in the world, and we've had some really great feedback from it. And in particular, we've loved working, with a variety of different podcast hosts like yourself, just talking about a lot of the ideas and concepts in the book.
Well, we love it. We love it for sure. Okay. Well, before we get into it, we need to say that Idaho Business Podcast is sponsored by the Lookout Credit Union. Throughout Idaho, these guys are phenomenal. They do a phenomenal job. And if any of our listeners go into one of their branches from Burley all the way up to Idaho Falls, and open up a new account and mention that you heard about us on the podcast, you'll get a free swag bag with your new account full of all the goodies you want, your shirts and all the fun stuff. So Michael, Rishon, let's get back to you guys. Let's start out with maybe a little known fact or a fun, interesting fact about yourselves.
Other than the fact that we've known each other for 42 years?
Yep, that's a fun one.
One of our first businesses was making fake IDs in high school. That's not a widely known fact. And I'll add a little more color to it, which speaks both to our being knuckleheads as the teenagers we were, and then turning that knuckleheadedness into something smart. So after making these fake IDs for a very long period of time and selling a lot of them, somebody pointed out that we actually spelled the word license wrong on the driver's license. And there were a lot of these in circulation. Nobody had noticed. Many smart people had seen them, and it just went over people's heads. And when we found out, we thought, well, we could change the board and, make this correction going forward. But what we ultimately concluded was if we left it that way and we ever got arrested or in trouble, we would just be able to say, clearly this was a novelty item. We weren't trying to imitate an actual license because we didn't even spell license correctly. So that's how you
amazing.
Iterate as you learn new things.
That's amazing. It's innovation right there, guys. That is funny. All right, well, let's get on to here. I know you guys have been in the business world for so long now at this. And I'm not saying you guys are crazy old, because you're not. You're still in the prime of your life, but you had a lot of good experience within the business world. But do you have maybe a story of one of your biggest fails and how you learned from it? Or learning moment, if you call it, not fail?
I don't know if this is our biggest fail, and Michael, I'm sure you have a different story, but so Michael and I have been partners in business since 1995 when we started Brickwall Management, and we love partnerships. We think partnerships are a wonderful way to do business because A, it allows you to divide and conquer, and B, it gives you twice the resources to pull from, especially when you're starting out. But fairly early on in our management company on the entertainment side, we partnered with somebody else. And we realized fairly quickly that the relationship was not good. I think we stayed in it for a lot longer than we probably should have. But for me, that was a real eye-opening experience. I don't know that ultimately I would call it a failure per se, but it was certainly a learn. I know Michael's going to give the Nelson Mandela quote about failure, so I'm not going to give it. I'll let him say that in a minute. But for me, that was really eye-opening about how important it is to really understand who you're going to be partners with, because it's a major commitment. And also when you realize that the partnership's not right, to unwind it as quickly as you can.
I agree.
I think that's a great learn. And I'll say personally, in my personal and my professional life, I still don't cut bait as quickly as I should when I recognize that something's not working. I always want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And maybe if this opportunity, maybe there's another chance, maybe I'm not managing them correctly. There's always something that gives me pause. And it's really a mistake. And part of what I do like about getting older is you start to learn to listen to that voice inside you a little bit more quickly and a little bit more clearly. And I'm doing it better than I used to, but I still don't listen as quickly and clearly as much as I would like to. And to go back to the quote that Rishon was talking about, Nelson Mandela said, "I never lose. I either win or I learn." And I think there's a lot to be said for that.
I will say another reason why partnerships are good is that when Michael's not cutting bait quickly enough, I'm there to say, like, we should stop, we should leave, we should, it doesn't always mean that we immediately do that, but I think there's the yin and the yang of partnership that helps to plug each other's blind spots.
I like that. I like that a lot. Within my world, and I'm sure other worlds with people are listening, the big thing from what I've seen in the past with partnerships or any kind of thing like that I've dealt with is some of them just turn toxic, and the negativity that it brings it completely dilutes that positive nature that you have as an individual, and you've got to get out of that as fast as you can before it drags you down with it. So perfect.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly the reason why I think when you identify the partnership isn't working, try to move as quickly as you can to prevent it from getting to the point where it's toxic, right? You get those warning signs pretty early, and you got to listen to them.
And I do think, not to undo what I just said about my own shortcomings in this area, I do think it's important to look at that relationship and say to yourself, is there something I'm doing that is causing this to fail? And if I change something, can this be successful? But we also talk about a concept in the book called the sabotage impulse. And when you run into this, and I'll explain in a second what it is, you really need to cut bait and turn around and go the other way. So one of the things that makes the exceptional 10Xers that we work with so exceptional is they like problem solving, they like feedback, they like to take responsibility when they make a mistake because they don't view mistakes or failures as tragedies, they view them as learning opportunities. But when you encounter somebody who's the opposite of that, where they won't take responsibility for anything, and it's always somebody else's fault, which means they can't learn from it because they didn't do it wrong, that's when you really have to just, because there's no, for all of my good intentions in those moments where I might be able to manage somebody or I behave differently and get something great out of them, when somebody has the sabotage impulse at a high level, there's nothing that you can manage your way out of with them.
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, moving into the 10X management portion of this podcast, how would you define, Michael gave a good description of 10Xers, but how would you define a 10Xer in your world?
Well, I'll give sort of a more clinical description, and Michael can do the more nuts and bolts description. For me, what a 10Xer is, and there are real people like this. I myself am not a 10Xer, but I'm always striving to be more 10X. But there are people in the world that are actually exponentially better than somebody else. So 10X is a concept of being exponentially better at whatever it is you do, delivering results that are exponentially better, whether it's sales, coding, which we talk, the backdrop of the book is really about the tech world. But a 10Xer is somebody who has a very high IQ, so they're very intelligent, and they have an equally high, if not higher, EQ. That's the emotional quotient, where they understand how to be human. They have empathy, they can communicate well. And our belief is when you have both of those components together, you can truly be exceptional. If you are deficient in one or the other, you probably will not be a 10Xer until you figure out that deficiency and learn from it. I would argue actually that EQ may be more important than high IQ, because if you can't relate to people and work with other people in the world, the likelihood that you're going to be very successful in what you do is probably limited. So you can be brilliant, but not communicative or not sociable. And the likelihood is you're not going to be able to succeed at the things that you want to achieve, because you just can't relate to the rest of the world. So that's sort of my clinical description of a 10Xer. Michael, you can sort of take it over with more nuts and bolts.
I was just going to add that there's already tons of evidence in the world that EQ, emotional intelligence, is a much higher determinant of success than IQ. You can be really smart, and if you don't have certain social and emotional skills, you are going to fail at every turn, and nobody's going to want to play with you, and nobody's going to want to work with you. And conversely, you can be smart and not the smartest person in the room and still be exceptional because you're able to rally people to do certain things or be able to be heard in a different way. And these are irrefutable skills at this point. It's just a question of who's catching up to learning this and how you can expand on these skills. And our learnings came from dealing with all this talent across these multiple fields. So the whole book is the distillation of the idea that exceptional talent across fields, across various fields, and we've worked with people now who are musicians, directors, entrepreneurs, technologists. They all have a lot of things in common, and what they love are hard problems to solve. They love being challenged. They love being creative. They're open to learning and approaching things with curiosity rather than defensiveness. So just imagine the difference. You're in a meeting with somebody and you might gently give a suggestion for something, and one person is instantly defensive of like, don't you think I considered that? Why would I do it that way? And the other person says, I had thought about that, but I dismissed it. Maybe we should give it a little bit more time and explore it. Let me hear your thoughts on that. Who do you want to work with? Who do you want to go to the next meeting with? Who do you want to, who will be able to hire you at their next company? Which of those two people? So it to me, it's so clear where the elements of these shake out and why it's so crucial to be working on the things that really make somebody 10X.
I love that. I was listening to a podcast with Ed Milet, and he was with Tim Grover. He's the trainer for Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And he talked about honesty and what honesty should actually bring out of an individual, kind of on the subject of emotional intelligence. And he said, when you're honest with someone, it should bring about change and action. But most times it's bring upon emotional reaction, which you were just talking about. Well, don't you think I considered that? This type of reaction, instead of like, oh, that's something we need to reconsider. I just think that right there is the emotional intelligence right there, when people can take honesty and digest it in a positive manner and think, okay, there's something to be learned here.
I was just going to add, one of the people we interview in the book is a gentleman named Daniel Lubetsky, who founded Kind Snacks. I'm sure everybody knows Kind bars that you get in Whole Foods and Starbucks. So one of the things he talks about, because the name of the company wasn't just a marketing gimmick, he was very focused on building a world with kindness and running a company that had that. And he talks about the difference between being kind and being nice. So if you're sitting across from somebody who's got spinach in their teeth, it's not nice to tell them that they have spinach. It's not going to make them feel good that you tell them that they're sitting there with spinach in their teeth. It is, however, kind to do that. And understanding the difference between those two things and being kind in the workplace is really crucial.
Yep. I love that. I love that a lot. And that's, I think, especially within business, as business leaders, I think sometimes we get promoted or advanced in our positions, and we think I got to rule with an iron fist, and it's the opposite of that. You can only push people to do so much, but if you can get them to follow and to lead, that's where the magic.
Well, we talk about that. That's actually kind of the backdrop of the book as well, which is that there's this old way of work that is really outdated. And the old way of work was a boss as I demand you do this, or I need this report on my desk by 3:00. If you don't have it on my desk by 3:00, you're fired. Very inflexible. More of, I don't want to say a dictator, but not a leader leading with empathy, leading with fear. We talk about the movie Office Space. I don't know if you've seen that, but there's a famous scene there where the manager goes around the office asking for TP reports. He wants his TP reports, and he wants you to come in over the weekend, and he doesn't really know what you do, and he just wants what he wants, and he keeps talking over people who are telling him like the issues that they have with whatever the report is, and he's just like, so you're going to get me those TP reports? It's just bludgeoning. That's the old way of work. And that way of work really does not work anymore, especially when companies have to do so much more with less. Technology allows companies the resource to achieve scale with far fewer employees. We also talk about the book, the difference between Blockbuster at its peak, Blockbuster video rentals, and Netflix, which both had similar earnings, but Blockbuster employed like 60 some odd thousand people, and Netflix employs 6,000. So when you're talking about doing, massive work with fewer bodies, you need to treat those people less like employees and more like talent. Using Michael Jordan and Kobe as a great example, can you imagine a basketball team treating Michael Jordan the way a cog in a machine employee would be treated at a company? Michael Jordan's going to say, yeah, no, thank you. I'll go play for that other team that's going to value me properly. That's what talent, and that's why we call the book Game Changer, How to Be 10X in the Talent Economy, because we believe we've entered an age where each employee you have is so important that you have to treat them and think of them as talent. I don't know how I went down this tangent or this road, but
no, I like it.
There I am.
I like it too. And it's also about just investing in your employees too. And like you said, and inspiring them. I can't remember who said it. You probably remember who it was, but they said I'll paraphrase here, but if they're worrying about putting all this money into training their employees, what if they leave, and then the other person comes in and says, okay.
CEO of Netflix.
Yep. And they said, well, what if we don't put any training into them and they stay? So, but it's true. Like, I think the quote is something like, train our people well enough that they can succeed, treat them well enough so that they stay. Okay. I like that a lot. Yep. That's the thing. Yeah. People just need to realize within the business, wow, if I could talk today, within the business world, that if you can just lead and inspire and give them, hey, this is what needs to happen by this timeline, use your creative juices and go at it, instead of being that person. Well, remember this, remember the comma, you got to do this, you got to do this, like
micromanagement versus management.
Right.
Yeah.
It's understanding the difference between managing and leading. I think that's a really big distinction. There are a lot of managers who are not leaders. And there are very few leaders who are not managers. They exist, but it's rare. Rishon often talks about a quote from Steve Jobs. So you were kind enough to let me have my Nelson Mandela quote, but I'm just going to steal your quote, which I think is really salient for the conversation, which is Steve Jobs used to say, we don't hire brilliant people and bring them here to tell them what to do. We hire brilliant people and bring them here to tell us what to do. And recognizing the value of the people on your team. And if, by the way, if your team isn't that valuable, then you have the wrong team. So you've got to really look at it from this standpoint and say, how do I get the most out of the people that I'm going to be able to engage with?
Congratulations on spending a couple of minutes getting a little bit smarter, having some fun, and supporting the Idaho business community. If you're feeling the love, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you are.